Training camp is 1 week away. We'll get you set. We'll tell you what's on the horizon for the Denver Nuggets as the season journey begins. Plus, are the Nuggets now the team of Denver? Is this going to be the most hyped Nuggets season in franchise history? And I've got some trade rumor slop for you. All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day, your week, your lives. We appreciate you guys joining us on whatever platform you've chosen, whether you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate a 5-star review, by the way. Just take a second. It would help us out so much. Or if you're checking us out on YouTube, you can catch us on the live show, World's Finest, every Sunday night. Enjoy us on YouTube, youtube.com/LockedOnNuggets. Appreciate your support. Hope you guys are having yourselves a great start to your week. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Adam Arez. He's director of content for DNVR, where you can catch pre- and post-game shows before every Colorado major sports-ing event. Nuggets content daily. They've got shows before and after all the Buffs games. They've got shows before and after all the Broncos games. All sorts of great stuff. Go check it out at thednvr.com. Adam, how's your Sunday night going?
Sunday night's going well. Weekend was good, nice and relaxing. And then, yeah, man, you mentioned it. The last week of the offseason, Matt. We're almost there, baby.
We are, which means that I woke up today and was like, oh, God, I have to write 20,000 words in like a week. So I mostly sat on the couch today, watched football, and wrote words about various NBA teams. And we'll be doing that pretty much every day for the rest of the 8 months. So on today's show, we're going to talk about what's next for the Nuggets. We thought we'd kind of give you a look at what the next couple of weeks are like. We'll talk about some of like the history of what's gone on with the team in these days before training camp, the early parts of training camp, kind of where they're going to be after the next couple of weeks before the season actually begins. Second segment, we're going to talk about, are the Nuggets currently the team of Denver? We'll talk about where they fit into the landscape of Denver sports. And in the final segment, I have some trade rumor news to talk about with regards to the Damian Lillard trade, stuff that I've been hearing since Thursday night. Some of it involves Western Conference teams, so it does impact the Nuggets, and it involves a team that the Nuggets are considered to be competitors with, who they just whooped in the second round of the NBA playoffs. We'll talk about that and more, but we start today with what's next for the Denver Nuggets. So the Nuggets, it's really funny because they make all these rules in the CBA, Adam, about, oh, you can't practice here and you can't have these practices, and you can only require him to be in town for this, and that's all. And then like everyone just comes in a month before and hangs out and plays basketball, and the coaches are there and they're definitely working like with coaches, and like everybody's in the building. Not everybody, a lot of players are in the building basically the month before training camp actually begins. There will be late arrivals, including Nikola Jokic. I haven't heard the AG's back in town yet. Wind would know. But yeah, the like Nuggets like preseason stuff has already been going for a while.
Well, I mean, all the youngins have been here. Reggie Jackson has been here. I reported this over at DNVR last week, but I've heard that Reggie Jackson had a very intense summer. He was working very hard, has looked great. And the fact that a veteran, a guy that's been in the league as long as him, stayed with all the youngins, that means something. It means he's very focused about this year, very committed to this season. Jamal Murray, I know, got back last week. He's been in town for most of the summer as well, working out. And again, just some more, rumors and rumblings. I've heard from multiple people on the team that he looks really good. Really, I think the exact thing I heard was he's never looked this good at this stage of the ramp up to the season. So, yeah, some guys have been in town, but this is a veteran team now. The starting five, they've got some DeAndre Jordan, those guys. Most of them have been away. So this is the week where guys typically start to get in and maybe get a little bit of a workout in before training camp.
Yeah, like KCP, I like KCP's level of being a pro, where KCP's like, no, I'll be in LA, and I'll be there. I'll be there on time. Don't worry. But like, I will show up when it's time for me to come to work. I always like that Millsap obviously always had people over to his place in Atlanta because he has that huge gym in Atlanta and they used to hold a bunch of stuff there. I'll be interested to hear kind of where they held the summer kind of meetups and those types of things. Cause those are always really interesting, is finding out, where those off-season meetups have begun. Training camp is, I'm trying to think of how to put this. Training camp it's obviously not the same as it is for, I don't think, baseball or football. I think it's very different in the NBA, especially like one of the things that always blows my mind is how quickly they go from training camp to games. Like it's like, oh, hey, you've been practicing for like 5 days. You're good. Let's play 48 minutes. I'm always kind of surprised at that because you kind of think of it differently. The Nuggets are going to San Diego again for training camp, which they have elected to do the last couple of years. I think that Malone really likes the bunker mentality, get away from the local, get out of your home, stay together in the same place. All of that, I think, really appeals to how Malone wants to approach things. So I don't know that that's the best call in this particular situation, but I don't think it's bad. I don't have any reason to think it's a concern. San Diego is an interesting choice. I did like it when they went to Sea Springs. That was my favorite training camp, I think.
Oh, yeah, because you didn't have to buy a plane ticket. I'm not sure who else is going to be out there this year. I think it keeps dwindling a little bit. The people keep falling off going out to San Diego for this week. So it will be curious to see if it's a quiet training camp or a little bit quieter than usual. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to seeing, you got me thinking when you were just talking now about the veterans on this team. And typically week before, we remember Jameer Nelson taking a group of guys out to paintball and workouts. Paul Millsap, and your point, has hosted people in Atlanta, and they've done different workouts, different guys. Last year, the duo of Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan, I think, took on a lot of that responsibility. And I'm just kind of curious, is that already happening? Is this the week? Like, does DeAndre Jordan get in this weekend so that he can be here this week to do those things? I'm kind of curious.
I'm curious too. I don't really have the answer to that. Like, that's kind of thing is, I will say this. I kind of think Jamal is kind of stepping into a little bit of that role as like the resident kind of like the guy that's, he's the one that I think he's always taken a pretty active role in communicating with the young guys. Like that's been something that he's done pretty typically. Like he was pretty on the court and in the locker room. Like Christian Brown's locker was next to his, and he was pretty communicative with Christian all throughout the kind of the process. And he's been in the gym for the last month, like working with guys. So he's been like part of the young guys crew there. So I think that Jamal might be taking on a little bit more of that role. So it'll be interesting to kind of see like how this shift develops this year. Cause last year you had DeAndre and Jeff and Ish. And now it's really just like DeAndre is like the lone, sage old man in the robe. And then you have kind of Jamal, I think, taking on, and AG probably taking on a little bit more of the vocal responsibility as far as locker room leadership of the young guys goes.
Yeah, but this is almost a different type of leadership, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is like vibes leadership. This is just like, hey, we need to like kind of bond and do these things. And I will say, to me, I think you're right about Jamal, by the way. He's always been a little bit of this, but young and growing up. I mean, he's matured now. I think he's ready for his best leadership year. But hearing Reggie Jackson's been around all summer and working hard and being with the guys, I almost wonder if we think of the vet that takes guys out to be a guy that doesn't play a whole lot. But I mean, Jeff Green last year played a lot. Maybe Reggie Jackson is that guy this year. And that's part. We keep wondering, like, what is Jase? Is Reggie going to be a positive impact player this year? They need him to play a lot of minutes. Is he going to be positive, negative? One way he can be positive that we haven't talked about is being that sort of big brother to everyone. There's a lot of young guys that are going to have some ups and downs this year. And if he's already established that rapport with a Peyton Watson, with a Zeke Naji, from being in the gym with them all summer, it might actually help. And it's one of those things you don't notice on a night-to-night basis, but it might be one of those things that actually it's like, yeah, that's why he's playing so much. The guys all respect and trust and kind of feel more confident when he's around.
In my experience, the players do tend to have a high level of respect for guys that have made it in the league through a variety of roles. And Reggie Jackson has been Oklahoma City wonderkin and Detroit founding positional player that kind of like things didn't work out and then bounced around and then was like the Clippers guy that stepped into a big role and helped them in the playoffs. Reggie's played a lot of different roles now in his career, and it kind of sneaks up on you with guys that you typically think of as young. Like Reggie to me seems like, oh no, Reggie's not like the old guy. Like Reggie only started. And I'm like, nope, that was 9 years ago. And so you kind of like these guys have been through a lot more. KCP's a lot like that too, where, I talked to him when he was like the vaunted draft pick, like, oh, they drafted this shooter in Detroit. And then like he bounced around and wound up with the Lakers and won a title, and he was with the Wizards, and then he wound up here. So these guys that have been through a lot, I think tend to have a lot of the respect because they know how to not only navigate all the different things about the NBA, but they know how to stick out and make a career of it. And that longevity, I think, is important for young guys to pay attention to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. When do you think Jokic, by the way, he probably doesn't get in until next week? Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter. I bet we see all these guys. I bet this week we see the videos. I think they're all in town this week outside of Jokic.
I think they're
maybe
all in.
KCP.
I think even KCP's in by like Wednesday. I think they're all in and they're all hanging out. Let's see. Media day will be around 11 a.m. on Monday. So Nicola will get in about 1 p.m. on Monday. Is what I'm kind of expecting. So on the other side, rough weekend for Denver sports. We'll talk a little bit about from a positive perspective. Does that present an opportunity maybe for the Nuggets to really kind of become the sports face of the city of Denver? We'll talk about that on the other side on Locked On Nuggets. First, I tell you about DoorDash. You missing the syrup for your pancakes or just ran out of your favorite coffee creamer? With DoorDash grocery delivery, you can get what you want right when you need it. I can't believe that we have this ad because I'm not kidding. This is not me. I'm not just shilling here. I am telling you straight up. Tonight, I was making dinner and I was making enchiladas. I make vegetarian enchiladas so my wife can have them for work. She loves them. It's her favorite thing that I make. I had everything. I had the fresh quesadilla cheese. I had I make the enchilada sauce from scratch. I had the sweet potato and the zucchini and everything. And I looked and I was like, I'm out of tortillas. And I was like stressing. I was like, I can't, because I had this podcast I had to do to go get yelled at by Heat fans at 6. I was like, I'm on a timeline here. I got to get this done. Guess what I did? DoorDash delivered, and I had tortillas within 30 minutes, ready to go, right as everything got out of the oven, was ready to be put together. It was absolutely amazing. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites. Now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or we'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. Want even more value? You can save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on every eligible order with a Dash Pass membership. With easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order, up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20 minimum subtotal and $0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us, making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us. I need to get to a few comments in the chat segment. Zamora says, I need Matt's thoughts on Taylor Swift being the new Chiefs fan. 555-ish says, Matt, how would I be betting Chiefs games now that Kelsey and Swift are dating? There was a great theory that she's actually an Eagles fan. There was a great TikTok that actually portrayed that this is a long-term con by her to basically ruin my franchise. I choose not to believe in that. I choose to believe in love. I'm very happy if she's happy. I'm very happy.
That is so you, Matt. Yeah, that is right.
I'm very happy if Travis is happy, and if things end badly, she'll put out a banger album. That's what she does. So very happy for them. It was really cool seeing her in the box today. That was very cool. Nino asks, where's your Red Bull, Matt? I am trying to cut down, sir. I am down to one a day. You
were over one a day?
We're not going to talk about how many I had. Actually, the last week I'm at one every 2 days, which I'm really proud of. I'm trying.
That's good.
Really
good work. Good job, man.
My heart's in good condition now, but every time that my doctor was like, so what are we talking about here? And then I told him, he was like, that needs to stop now. Now. All right, let's talk a little bit about the city of Denver. So the Rockies are the Rockies. And
yeah, they are.
You know, the Avs, I think, are going through still a little bit of a rebuild. They lost a lot of guys in free agency
They're
this
not
year.
Going through a rebuild. They're going to be great. They're going to be great this year.
You think so?
I think the Avs are good. But the Avs are good.
And I think the Avs will still be like a major deal. And to me, they're like a marquee franchise in the NHL just because of like their success and obviously the title 2 years ago. But like for as long as I've been here, it really has been like the Broncos and everybody else. But now you do have a championship by the Avs, and then last year by the Nuggets, and a run that I think really did capture people's imagination. Like it brought a lot of people together, and we kind of chronicled that over the summer about the impact on the community and everything that it meant to everyone. And so I kind of want to open up to you, Adam, and just kind of ask you, look, this season I think has, like last season had hype, but until you win a title, I think that a lot of people in Denver were still like, no, yeah, they could be good. That'd be cool if they were, but they're still like, but I got to see it. And now it's like, no, like they're the defending champions. I am kind of curious for you. Like, do you think that this will be let's start with the hype. Do you think this will be the most hyped Nuggets season in history?
Man, that's a good question. It's such a long season. I think it could be. It depends on how hot the Nuggets start. But it could be. I mean, if they get off to just a regular start, I do think attention will be on them early. They got all those national TV games. It's hard to compare the hype now to the hype in the 2000s because I just feel like there was more monoculture. Basketball was bigger. Sports were bigger. So I think the hype back then, like getting Iverson, the 2009 team, the hype might have been higher. But I do think that the Nuggets this year, the Broncos have never been down for this long. This is the thing, and people outside of Denver really don't understand this. The Broncos have been a first-class, great organization and one of the better teams in football for 8 out of 10 years for the last 30 years. This is the first time they've gone through an 8 years of being bad, and it appears to be the worst year of all time. Today, if you're not an American football fan, the Broncos gave up the third most points ever allowed in a football game, the equivalent of roughly giving up 180 points in a basketball game. I honestly think they did the equivalent of giving up 180. They're 0-3. They look like they might win 2-3 games all year, if that. And so I think that we've never seen this long of a run from the Broncos being this bad, and we've never seen them be quite this down bad. So I do think that there is just this general sense of, as much as I've never thought the Broncos can be unseated from number one, and I still don't really think that's possible, I think if ever there was a moment, it's right now, and it just so happens to line up with when the Nuggets are the best and most interesting.
I think the best way to kind of put it is this is going to be the first time that I genuinely think you might start to see more local talk in like whatever areas about the Nuggets during Broncos season. Like on like Wednesdays and Thursdays, and not just like, oh, Nuggets played last night and here's the score and whatever. And like, oh, did you see that game? Yeah, it was pretty good. So anyway, the Broncos, if you're talking to so-and-so at the office or whatever, like the Nuggets, I think will be a topic of conversation. I think that the TV deal is still a huge impediment to this, right? Like everyone can say that they watch the Broncos game.
Right.
I'm sorry. By the way, I say this with extreme sincerity. Like today was it. Like today was like I was seriously like, McDaniel, like you got to call off. Like McDaniel, you got to call off the dogs here. Like I was like, I genuinely was like, I felt for Broncos fans, and I've never meant that whenever I've said that before.
The thing is, the dogs were called off. They scored their last 2 touchdowns on like some weird plays, but they weren't trying to score touchdowns. They just happened to.
Right.
The Broncos were so bad. But I don't want to spend this whole time on the Broncos. It really is just that this is a unique moment for Broncos. Yeah. And as you said, 3 weeks into the NFL season is kind of like 10 days into the NBA season. You never say a season is over 10 days in, no matter how bad you start.
Right.
But this is pushing that, where this one actually does feel like, no, the season's actually over. And to your point, there's another Bronco game next week. They play the other worst team in the NFL next week in the Chicago Bears. But if they lose that one, or even if they win it, but it's unconvincing or whatever, which is almost a lock at this point, the Nuggets start training camp right after that, and nobody's ever really been interested in training camp outside of the diehards. And I am curious, if you get to a place where you're 0-4 and everything thinking about the Broncos feels bad, I do wonder if people are like, you know what? This is the year I become a diehard, and it's training camp, whatever. I'm going to check out the Nuggets and learn about them in training camp.
The Buffs are obviously another layer to this, right? Because of how popular they've been. I think that they have to like factor into the conversation now with Coach Prime. I do think I do kind of have like an interesting question for you off of kind of looking at the scope of all of Denver sports. Do you feel like there is a little bit to be said for the identity of this Nuggets team in relation to the city? I think if you had a non-hype, all basketball, do the work team in a city like Los Angeles or New York, I think they would honestly be like, can't you be like a little bit more interesting? Versus like, I do kind of want this town is always like one of the things that like I really respect about Denver is the reason that they love the Broncos is they're like, this is a first class organization. Like, we expect championships, we expect greatness. Being bad is not acceptable, and that's why this has been so devastating, is because it's just been like, no, now it's fixed. Nope. Okay, now it's fixed. Nope. And so like that's been the struggle. But this Nuggets team is so Spursian. I do think that it kind of resonate with a little bit of the city's identity, and it creates like a strong culture, I think, around the city a little bit.
Do you think of Colorado? Do you think of Denver as a blue collar city?
I don't. It's not a blue collar city is kind of the way I would describe it, right? It's not like Milwaukee's a blue collar city. Pittsburgh's a blue collar city.
Detroit, like there's that. I think Denver's somewhere in the middle. I think they might be more of a like white collar city that's just non-glamour. Yeah. So there's almost that distinction. In that way, here's what I say. I think this Nuggets team is pretty perfect for Denver. I mean, Jokic is an extremely likable Denver star in that the aloofness doesn't play everywhere, but it does play here, I think, quite a bit. So I think that this team, I mean, they have all the markings of it. I mean, anybody that tunes in, Matt, you know this from the playoffs. Anybody that watched them consistently was like, wow, this is way more fun than I thought. That was the thing everybody said. The thing is how many people actually tune in to watch them. And you're right about the television piece of this. That's really bad. But they're on television, Matt, 30 times this year. Roughly half the games, which if we're being honest, the people that watch every Nuggets game is a really small percentage of Nuggets fans. It's the same with like, think about Rockies. There's people that say, oh yeah, I'm a big Rockies fan. How many games do you watch a year? About 40, right? Like I miss way more than I admit. And I think that's actually pretty normal, even for people who claim to be, big time fans. So the fact that there's 30 games, that roughly comes out to like once a week, there's a Nuggets game on television. Yes. I think people are going to be tuned in more than ever. I do think there's going to be a lot of momentum. But to say most hyped, I don't know. I will say this though. I do think there's going to be a lot of Broncos fans, Rockies fans, just Denver sports fans who are more bored than they've ever been before because of the state of their team.
Yeah, that's probably true. I will give you the NoCo perspective up here in Northern Colorado. It's night and day in terms of the amount of Nuggets, gear, flags, bumper stickers, decals, kids wearing jerseys, high fives from people that see each other walking around. Like it is more prevalent than ever here. And I think that's kind of like an interesting extension of Denver itself, right? Is like, because it's pretty common, is not just that. And especially I think it's interesting when you have multiple teams in a state that like, this is like, these are the teams for the whole state. And there's a lot of pride in Colorado. So like, I do think that kind of factors in as well. I think that's definitely gone up as well.
And did you see that season tickets are sold out?
Oh,
I got an email earlier this week or last week. Season tickets are sold out. I don't know if that's ever happened, by the way, in Denver. I don't know if they've ever sold out season tickets. So there are some indicators, Matt. There are some indicators that this year will be significantly different. I mean, the Nuggets have been good. We've watched this rise for a long time, but I do feel like most people discovered them in the playoffs last year, which means it is possible this thing is all significantly bigger than we realize.
I also think there was probably a turning moment for locals the same way that it was for really the national, which is like, okay, sure, you beat the Suns, but it's the Lakers. Okay, sure, you won games 1 and 2, but it's LeBron and the Lakers. And they won game 3 and everybody was like, oh
my God.
So like they're going to sweep the Lakers.
Yeah.
And that was like, I think that was definitely a changing point. On the other side, I got some slop for you. I got trade rumors. I got all sorts of stuff to talk about. I want to get Adam's reaction to some of the things that are bouncing around. We'll talk about that on the other side when we return on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us as we start countdown to training camp, which is then countdown to preseason, which is then countdown to regular season. Lots of countdowns here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Real quick, take a second. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. There's some sort of mechanism for reviews on Spotify. I forget how it is, but if nothing else, just hit the star button on Spotify. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you give us a like and subscribe. That stuff helps. That stuff really helps. We need that stuff. Help us out. All right, so I got some stuff for you. Last Thursday, everything was quiet. Picked up my kid from work, was going to go, or from school. I came home, was making dinner, and all of a sudden I started getting texts, and I'm like, what's going on? And I just get like a couple of texts that are just like, Toronto's starting to make a move for Dame. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was a little bit skeptical, but we'll see kind of what happens. But then the interesting thing kind of comes out of it. And this started, my belief is that this is speculative. My belief is this began as Miami called Phoenix to try and figure out a mechanism to help them get Dame, and they included Phoenix. And then from there, Portland has started calling Phoenix to include them in conversations with other teams they're talking to. The core of that is there is a widely held belief that I'm trying to think about how confident I want to be here. It's pretty likely. Let's do that. Pretty likely that DeAndre Ayton's going to wind up as a Portland Trailblazer. Yusuf Nurkic is going to go to Phoenix. That deal might even wind up being a separate deal if the Dame deal gets expanded. The key there is that there's still going to have to be other pieces involved because Phoenix is not doing that deal in a vacuum. They are doing this essentially to take Ayton's value and split it into replacement level center, Yusuf Nurkic, and then a wing to add into the rotation. They want like another rotation piece. So you take Ayton and you split it up into two different components, and that way they have more guys, and they kind of solve the Ayton issue, which has been kind of prevalent for them. I think it's a bad move because I think Ayton is just that big of an upgrade over Nurkic. But I am kind of curious as to your thoughts. Phoenix is going to be a team that Denver will be measured against. The playoff matchup obviously matters with how Denver dominated them in 4 of the 6 games. But I am kind of curious as to your thought of what is your idea of Phoenix losing Ayton, especially if they were to replace him with Nurk, and then we can talk about the possibility of other guys going there.
Well, let's start here because we kind of disagreed about this last year, that Ayton makes an impact on Jokic, which was true of the past. He definitely did in the past. But I had thought that Jokic had solved him, so to speak. And I think with what happened in the playoffs, I think it's pretty fair to say he had. Where do you fall on that? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the toughest matchup for Jokic and 1 being he doesn't even see him, where do you feel Ayton is now?
When I went back and I watched some of the clips this week of Ayton defending Nikola, I was like, that's really good defense. It doesn't matter. Like, you can play positionally pretty good and put up a hand and contest well, and it doesn't matter. The problem with Ayton was all the other stuff where like his effort level, like you have to live through all that. And then like you also have to hustle your face off to try and like outwork him for stuff. And you're still going to lose most of those. I totally agree with you that he solved him. Like I'm with you. Like I'm not, when I say like he did a good job, it's like, I don't know what else I would have asked of him. Like, I think
the bigger point is I think that Ayton had become just like any other player to Jokic. And over that, meaning whatever things, his length and his mobility and this or that, those things, whatever that was, I think got reduced down to as close to 0 as you're going to get, in my opinion. And that Ayton was not a factor. If you look at, because he didn't play game 6. So if you only look at games 1 through 5, Jokic averaged 35 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, shot 57% from the field and 47% from 3 over the first 5 games of that series. To me, he did whatever he wanted, and Ayton got reduced all the way down to just another guy. I agree that he is better than Yusuf Nurkic. But if I'm Phoenix, I almost understand the logic of, yeah, but he doesn't work against that guy, so what does it matter if he's better?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Might as well just throw 6 fouls, which is what Yusuf Nurkic basically is. There's 6 fouls. Ayton and Nurkic, all they have as an impact are 6 fouls on Jokic. We'll roll him out there, and that works. So if you can get a second player, then it definitely makes sense, because my thing about Phoenix is their roster is so thin. The reason I think Denver will beat them more than anything else, it's not about Bradley Beal is overrated and the fit is this or that. More than anything, it's do they have 7 guys? I don't think they do. If they end up getting another wing, they get closer to 7 guys. And then I start to go, okay, Denver's not going to totally crush them every time they have to bring any sub in.
I'm of the belief that Phoenix was hoping. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Phoenix was hoping to try and get in on a deal with Portland, sending them Ayton, and Toronto. Toronto gets Dame, and Phoenix gets OG. Again,
OG is the centerpiece of that trade. So the Nurkic is like, that's just like, it doesn't matter. They got OG.
The more likely scenario is actually that this winds up being a multi-team deal that sees probably, I would say, Caleb Martin is the most likely player. EFC MVP runner-up. Caleb Martin to Phoenix along with Nurk. Like that's probably pretty good value.
That's phenomenal value. He's good. Caleb Martin. Both the Martins twins are really good. Caleb is really good. If they got him, to me, that's like OG. It's just another guy on the wing that's a really good defender, really smart, knows his role. So yeah, I would hate a move like that.
This one isn't going to impact Denver as much because Utah's not in their class, but Utah is the other team that's heavily involved in all these discussions. It would probably involve something, if they get pulled into the Dame trade, it probably looks something like THT, Taylor Horton Tucker goes to Portland. I really like THT last year. I thought he played really well. And there's a slight possibility. Ethan Skolnick down at 5 Reasons thinks that there's interest in Colin Sexton going to either Phoenix or Portland in that construct. And so
is that only for Ayton? So Ayton's out the door and Sexton is in? Is this the idea?
No, that's in the 4-way deal with Dame.
So Ayton stays in this scenario.
No, he goes in every scenario that I've heard.
Okay.
Goes to Portland. So it'd be Sexton and maybe like Sexton and Caleb Martin potentially to Phoenix. It depends on. So like that's kind of the question here is like how much is a lot of this gets into a very complicated trade dynamic, which is how much is Portland okay with another team getting better assets to make it work? Like if they get the picks and they get the young guys, but like the Suns walk away with Caleb Martin and Colin Sexton, which are probably 2 of the top 5 best players involved in the trade.
Yeah.
How do they feel about that? Right.
If I was Portland, I would not care. And I would not care because I love the idea of Ayton and Scoot Henderson getting paired together. I like that. Yeah. So for me, I just worry about myself and I think, okay, that's a good team that's probably 3 years away from serious contention. And the Suns are probably 3 years of being good. So to me, you almost don't worry about it.
This is an even less likely outcome. I will still tell you that I still think he winds up with the Heat. I just think that's the most likely outcome based off of everything. A large part of that is because I just don't trust that Masai Ujiri's ever going to really commit. I just don't think he will. Like more frustration over the weekend about like, we thought like everyone's like, okay, we got some momentum here. And then Masai's like, yeah, I'm out. And I was like, okay, that's over with. And then he comes back later. It's like, okay, what if we're back in, but we don't give you anything and you just give us your goods. So a lot of frustration.
Let me ask you this. So do you think Dame gets traded before next Monday?
Yes.
Do you think James Harden gets traded before next Monday?
Potentially in the same deal. Yes.
And then I assume that means Ayton gets traded. Let's say Phoenix is cut out of a deal for Dame. You know, they're not involved in any capacity. Do you think Ayton gets moved?
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's another construct that works. I don't think there's another team that wants him. I think it's damaging that this got out. I think it's damaging that everyone knew. Like, I
mean, come on, DeAndre. They've been trying to trade DeAndre.
No, but that's the whole thing, though. Is like when they brought on Vogel, they did the whole like, we're gonna fix this.
The new coach. It's a new coach. New
and
champ.
they couldn't make it to training camp, right? And so now. Like the whole thing, I honestly think a whole lot of it with Ayton is like Ayton felt like everyone was against him because Monty Williams made him feel like that. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the dynamic that happened. And like I think an energized, engaged Ayton is a pretty good player, but they've burned that. Like I don't know if he's going to burn that again with all these discussions. I have one more for you. There's a very slight. This is very small, very tiny chance. Imagine it's the NBA Finals. It's the defending champion Denver Nuggets taking on Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. You have any thoughts on if does Dame get Joel where he needs to go?
Maybe. I mean, they're an interesting pair. I've always felt that Dame makes it a little too easy to attack on the other end, and I still think that would be the case for the Nuggets. I just think that I think Denver would score really easily, but we've also seen Dame score 55 points in a playoff game. I mean, that guy also has that. To me, here's what it is. It would remind me a lot of the Phoenix series last year, in that there'll probably be a few games where Dame's hot enough that he's going to score all those points. If Embiid has a couple games where he's hot like that and scores the points, they might win. But in every other margin, I think Denver scores consistent and well. Do you feel like that's fair? Like Denver has the same game, and it's an A+ game every game against that team. And Philly would have the potential to be a little bit higher just because they have two volume scorers who have the ability to get flaming hot.
Denver in 6 feels right.
Yeah.
That feels right to me. Okay. That's going to wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll see you tomorrow. It'll be probably me and Swipa is what it'll be. We will talk to you guys then. Thanks for joining us on Locked On Nuggets.